Hola familia, Carlos Vides con Mentes Innovadoras aquí por Televida. Y espero que estén pasando una feliz semana y que estén disfrutando al máximo esta primavera. Y también para los que están preparándose para viajar e irse de vacaciones, siempre mi consejo sería que si van a manejar, asegúrense que su carro esté en buenas condiciones, que tiene todos sus papeles en orden, su aseguranza, que tiene todo para que si algún fracaso pasa, un accidente, usted no tenga tantas inconveniencias en el camino. Otra cosa, no se olvide la importancia de seguirnos dando la vacuna del COVID-19. Para todas las personas que no se han vacunado, vacúnese, es importante. Lo va a proteger a usted, va a proteger a su familia y va a proteger a la comunidad para que así logremos disfrutar este verano sin ningún problema, que nadie se nos enferme y hasta perder vidas. Bueno, ya les avisé. Ahora les traigo un invitado muy especial. Este muchacho es alguien que lo conozco hace muchos años aquí en la comunidad, un jovencito. Lo admiro mucho por la forma de trabajar de él en el lugar público, en las áreas públicas, en el lugar políticos. Solo está involucrado en muchas áreas, el cual vamos a hablar este día. Él es el tesorero de la escuela de Kansas City, el del distrito de escuela de Kansas City, y también representante de, trabaja con el Emmanuel Cleveland, el representante de la Casa de Estados Unidos. Entonces, vamos a presentarles a ustedes a mi gran amigo, Manny Abarca 4. Manny, gracias por estar con nosotros. Thank you very much for being here with us today. An absolute pleasure. And I hope that we can leave a good message for our community.
Sure. And I wish that I could do it in Spanish. I am fourth generation, so somewhere around my grandma, Spanish was unfortunately not kept up in our family. So
you know, it's not an easy thing because even for us, like my kids, they don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And they are first generation.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And reasons is because, you know, we get so busy going to work, leaving the kids home, watching TV in English.
Yeah.
And then they go to school, English.
Right.
And then sometimes you get a few hours with the kids and they struggle to speak Spanish with you.
Sure.
So I understand. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. This is a pleasure.
But the most important thing is don't lose the culture.
Oh, no, definitely not.
And I think you haven't.
No, definitely not.
Right?
That's right.
Excellent. Well, we are very happy you're here today. As always, I like to share with the community, what are you doing different? Because we are innovative minds. So we like to tell not the normal things that people always talk about it, but the different things that you're doing to get ahead in life.
Sure.
As a Manny Abarca and also as a community.
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about, were you born in Kansas City?
Yeah, so I was born on the Kansas side, born in Argentina, and then kind of raised on the Missouri side. My mom and dad split up, and I went with my mom. We went actually around the Kansas City public schools because at the time things were very detrimental. We went to Hickman Mills and then eventually landed in Grandview suburbs of Kansas City. And I was the only Latino kid that was in class that didn't speak Spanish, right? So I wasn't ELL, but I was still this only kid who was there in all of my sports, all of my activities. And it was a unique experience growing up in the suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri.
And all the kids come up to you and speak Spanish, and you're like,
I was like, okay. And then, I was never accepted by everyone else. And, I was left to figure it out.
So were you one of those kids in between?
Yeah. I was one of those kids in between. I had the privilege of being in some of the advanced classes and things like that, but I was the only one there. And it was very isolating. And then I would find the same thing when I went to college. So it's been a fun experience throughout my life.
Well, but you had an opportunity either way to learn both worlds.
Yeah.
Right, because you got a chance to blend in or hang on more to the English-speaking people only.
Sure.
But then every once in a while you came up and ate tortillas and hung out with the Latino community.
Of course, every time I came home, right? I mean, there was a fiesta, somebody's birthday, we would go nonstop, right? And it's funny because I say that my freshman year of college is really when my culture grabbed me. And I learned how to dance right, I learned how to eat right, all of these things that, we as a family here have some cultural traditions, but there are certain things that you just don't learn until you're around other folks, first generation immigrants themselves, and I dove in very quickly.
And it's very important to learn how to dance right.
Oh yeah, it's very important.
Know how to dance right.
Yeah.
Eat the right.
That's right.
Prepare that taco the right way.
Yeah.
And the right salsa.
That's right. You got to.
Excellent. I like that.
Yeah.
So Manny, you're very young. And I've known you for a while.
Sure.
In fact, if you remember, we met back in 2010 or 2011, I think it was. You were just getting, I think you were in the first or second year of college.
Yeah, I was in graduate school. So I would have been my first year of graduate school, I think, is when we met.
And I don't know if you remember, I tried at the time to recruit you.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, you do?
I do. I have a New York Life policy.
I tried to recruit you because you were somebody that, to me, looked exactly like the type of people we look for. Very clean, very sharp, intelligent, and all those things. But one thing that I still remember to this day, you told me that you were not very interested on just getting a job.
Sure.
That you wanted to go in a different way.
Yeah. So the community stuff, it's something that was ingrained in me very early on, right? My grandparents specifically, I remember my grandpa, he has tamale business that he does on the side. And folks would come up all the time and, hey, I don't have enough money for all of this. Well, here, let me give you 1 or 2 tamales instead of a dozen. And so it was just that natural instinct that they kind of instilled on me, right? And so my dad is a truck driver. My grandfather was a truck driver. My mom worked administrative jobs and still does to a certain extent. So I didn't come from too much in terms of guidance with community support, but it was just these little elements that kept adding into my development that I eventually collected all together. And then I think when I got to college, it was really apparent that I could do this as a profession, and that I could give back and impact my community in certain ways.
Talking about community impacts and all that stuff, before I go into that area, I met your dad. He's a go-getter too.
Yeah.
He's a go-getter. I met him a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that he was your father. It just happened to me.
The third. Yeah.
It just happened to me. And yes, he's a truck driving, but he's very involved with the union of the truck drivers.
Yeah.
And he's not only doing things, but he even offered me at the time opportunities for kids that are looking for scholarships.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad actually, I think, got inspired by a fellow colleague who's a truck driver who got me a scholarship early on. He created or picked back up the Hispanic Scholarship Fund through the Teamsters, and then has worked to build this organization, the Hispanic Caucus, that he's gathered members of the union together and done taco dinners and dances to raise money for scholarships. And so now I think they give away two $2,000 scholarships a year.
Yes, it was impressive. And one of the things I said to him, well, will you guys help people that has no paper? He goes, we don't care.
Yeah.
We just wanted to go to college.
Yep.
And that was like amazing. And I recommended him around. I haven't talked to him in a while because of COVID-19 and we all got disconnected. But if he's watching.
He probably will.
Yeah. All right, now let's get back to you. So public service, getting involved in all the things that go around a community to serve and to benefit our culture, our Hispanic, Latino community. What did you see that was important to you to get into it? Why?
Sure. Well, first off, I didn't see a lot of people like us, right, in the process. So I was initially engaged early on in college, and I was around the DREAM Act. And I really had no understanding, right, because all of my family have legal status. And so that was never an issue of immigration for my family. And we had a few folks around, but that was never a topic of discussion. And so when I got to college and I started interacting with folks in several of the Latino organizations, I realized, this person doesn't have status. This person doesn't have the ability to achieve things, not because of their own doing, because of the system employing that on them. And so I really leaned into that and tried to explore more why this wasn't happening. At that time, the national movement of DREAM Act was going, and so I really dove in. I remember being in Jefferson City, our state's capital, and trying to advocate and push for a state DREAM Act. And this one senator who was kind of standing in the way had said, I don't care what you're saying, I don't care what you do, I don't care what you tell me, I'm not voting for this because this doesn't matter to me. And I was thinking, these are Latino people, these are people. Why doesn't it matter to her? How can I move her if she doesn't care? And then I thought, I need to be in that spot because that's the person who's pushing the button. That's the person making the decision.
Yeah.
Somebody like us needs to be there doing that.
talking about that is one of the things that really bothers me sometimes. Our community, we are growing and growing, right?
Fast.
And we're very quick becoming the majority.
Yeah.
As a population.
Sure.
But we're still considered the minority because our levels, the involvement, I think,
Sure.
and how much power we
Right.
have in making decisions. So we always let somebody else making the decision for us, and we don't get involved into being the ones making the decision.
Right.
And that's why I invited you today, because I want you to help me out to motivate these young kids going into college or getting out of college to look into the science of politics.
Sure. Yeah,
and public service.
It is something that is relatively easier than you think to get involved in, right? Many leadership opportunities are from the people who showed up, right? And then from that, there's one person who rises to the top. And it's because that person said, yeah, I'll do it. And that's really sometimes all it takes is showing up and getting involved and willing to step up and challenge yourself to lead in some of these situations. I joined the school board for the Guadalupe Center's first charter school. And I remember telling the person who told me that they wanted me to join, I said, man, I have no experience in education. Why would I ever be able to lead an organization that is for education? He said, that's not what it's about. We have teachers, we have principals, they do that work. We need somebody to help govern the whole system. And you make good decisions and you'd be great on this. And that led me to the school board in Kansas City, Missouri. So it's just moments like that where you get to challenge yourself to step up.
But how unique it is that somebody as young as you, so you close to the heart of the young people.
Sure.
You still think like the young ones.
I try.
You still think like them. You're not obsolete yet. And then 1 and 2, Latino. So you listen to what other people is talking about.
Sure.
They talk in your ear.
Yeah.
And then 1 and 3, I feel that you go out, gather up all this information, then you come to these meetings where decisions are made.
Right.
And futures are decided.
Sure.
One of the things that I always want to make sure that we encourage is these people, these young kids that are in college, getting out, fresh out of college one more time, those 22s, those 23 years old kids. I feel that it's very important that we touch them. And when they think about getting a job, also think about how many hours can you be a volunteer in some kind of non-for-profit, in some type of a public service type of organization in a community. I personally, donate about 10, 12 hours per month helping in different groups around the community. And I do it purely because I want to learn what is being said and what type of decisions are being made that can affect us or that can benefit us.
Yeah.
So I can tell the community, hey,
listen to this or go there and do that.
Go this way.
Yeah.
Is that something that you feel that is something we can build on?
Yeah, 100%. It's one of the foundational things that I carry with me and I inspire and other folks that I'm trying to guide along the way is you have to give back. You have to go back and give back to the community that gave so much to you, right? I didn't get here by myself. There are people who were behind me and who are still pushing me up. And for that, I thank them. And now I do that by going back and helping others. And so the only way we can get to anywhere that we want to go is by doing it together and bringing people along with us, right? So if you don't see 2 people along the side of me when we're going out places, then I'm not doing my job right.
So the idea is you always have somebody listening to what's going on around you so they can also grow themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mentor them.
Grow themselves and ultimately to work yourself out of a job. I mean, for me, I've been extremely privileged to be in positions where I've loved everything that I've done. I've worked in places that I have passions for, and I'm not going to stay there forever, right? And somebody has to come and fill that gap or the work doesn't continue. And what impact have you made then?
Yeah, because I remember at the time when you and I talked, you were very into the recycle system.
Yeah.
The environment.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
It's still very important to me. It's something that I go back and forth with, right? Trash and politics, they're probably the same, really. But to some degree, I remember another moment in college when a friend of mine, I was rushing back and forth and trying to do something, and the gal said, well, just remember, don't worry, go to your meeting, go do whatever. But if we don't take care of our planet, doesn't matter what you're working on now, there's going to be no planet here for you to do it on. So make sure that the environment is always in your head, and it has always been in my head since.
And it doesn't. You don't have to be crazy picking up the trash, but maybe go through education process.
Sure.
Educating our community what it means to trash the streets, Or maybe cut a tree that don't need to be cut.
Right, that's right.
or,
Right.
or maybe plant the tree.
Yeah, or don't put the oil on the stump, right? I mean, the simple things that sometimes our culture does. But you know, it's funny because I attribute my environmental lining to my grandparents because, right, they saved the baby jars. They saved the food containers to make for Tupperware that we couldn't afford, right? And so all of these different reuse things were out of thrift, but in reality, it was also saving the planet while they were doing it. So.
And I think that the saving the planet message is a very important message
Sure.
because you know, we are so commercialized.
Yeah.
And it's all about how can we do it better and fast.
Yeah.
And save money.
Yeah.
But we sometimes forget what it means, at what cost.
Yeah.
Are we doing all these things for the future?
Yeah. Well, and again, back to our kids, right? I mean, this is we have to leave the planet in a position that is healthy for the future and the future of our kids, our grandkids, all those kids. So yeah, that's it. Back to our kids, as you talked about before.
Very good. So environment is also one of the things that I know that you do, and I know that it was in your heart at the time, and it still is. So that will be also, is there an organization where our community can get involved in the environment side?
Sure. Bridging the Gap is one of the local nonprofits that is an environmental nonprofit that does great work here in our communities.
Bridging
the Gap. Bridging the Gap. And I know that there's a great Latino who's working for that organization, Mark Morales, who taught me a lot of what I do now and actually lives in this community.
Perfect. So we can find Mark Morales.
Yeah.
Let's look him up on Facebook and send him invites so you can become friends with him and he can teach you how to get involved with environmental stuff.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, now let's go back into the education side.
Sure.
Let's go back into I know that I'm sure we already talked about it, but let's revisit this idea. What make you get into the education? What do you see in the school districts in Kansas City school public system?
So I found education as a valuable component early on. I specifically remember a moment, I was probably a C student in elementary school, just kind of riding along, you know, thinking I'm cool.
Behind the scene.
Yeah, behind it. I was in the last row of every class. And I remember my stepfather at the time visiting me one day, and he said, you know what, just get out of here. Let's take the day off. So he took me out of school. We went horseback riding, which I had never done. We had a steak dinner, which I, you know, rarely had from a kid from my community. And then he took me to Toys R Us at that time and said, all right, pick out anything you want. And picked it out and he bought it. And then at the end of the day, he said, how do you like this lifestyle? And I said, man, this is great. This is awesome. He said, great. Now go back to school and graduate, because if you don't and you don't succeed, you can't have any of this. Because at the end of the day, you might be flipping fries, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's your limitation. If you limit yourself, you cannot have access to all of these amazing things today. And that changed my life forever.
Wow. But that was a real picture.
That was yeah, literally, I had access to everything at that moment, and I thought I did, and it was education that was going to unlock that for me.
That was very cool lesson. That was very cool lesson.
It was, and it stuck. And today I'm pursuing my doctorate degree in educational leadership and policy analysis. So
fantastic.
Something that I thought I'd never be able to do. First doctor in my entire line of people that existed.
At the Abarca family.
Of the Abarcas, yeah.
That is fantastic, Manny. You know, for you to not just get comfortable where you are, but continue to grow. And that is one of the things that I always say. Don't get comfortable.
Yeah.
Stay comfortable with uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right.
Keep growing.
Right. Yep.
Because you know, if we come to this country like me, you know, I came to this country, I didn't speak English. I had to learn English, and then go through a process of educating myself.
Sure.
And I had to do it by myself, really by myself, because I had no family to do that with me.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, sometimes, what's the point? Well, the point is that you want to be better. And you don't want to be at the same.
Right.
You know, we've been doing this for the past 100 years, so it's time for us to make our own decisions.
Right.
And if there was a place that a Hispanic, young, fresh out of college person can make an impact in Kansas City, where do you think is the best that they can start?
I would say come back to Kansas City Public Schools. Go back to your high schools, right? Go back and touch back with those communities, because likely they've grown from when you last remembered them, right? So I graduated from Grandview High School, and when I did, I left and we welcomed our first Latino superintendent. We now have a second Latino superintendent, right? And the population of Latinos in Grandview itself is growing dramatically.
Growing.
And so I think it's on the top 10 list for the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
And similarly, as you look at the populations in all schools across the state, Latino populations are the quickest that are growing.
Yes.
So I would tell them to go back to their schools,
the school districts,
and make an impact and show them what you've accomplished already. And keep in mind, like, if you are bilingual, you can get a $60,000 job like that, no problem. Don't sell yourself short. That is one of my detriments that I'm working on, and I would love to get back there. And my girlfriend will tell you she's teaching me and her 3-year-old Spanish at the same time. So we're getting there.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I would go back to schools.
So the public school district is when they can immediately start making a difference.
100%. And there's mentorship programs, and there's opportunities to read to kids, anything. Go volunteer with the baseball team if that was your thing. All of the opportunities exist within a public school system.
And remember, for those of you that are watching, you don't have to even get a job there if you don't want to. You can have your own career, but then put some time to get involved with the boards.
100%.
Get involved with the board, get some kind of position in the board,
Sure.
so you can learn. Because that's what I enjoy the most. And I'm saying this because that's me.
Yeah.
I get into these boards just to listen to, and they're like, "What do you want to do?" I say, "Well, I'm learning about you." 6 months later, okay, I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm listening what decisions they make and how can that help my community.
Right.
And what impact, good or bad, can that have?
Right.
And whenever I hear comments that feel like, oh man, no, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Whether you like it or not, whether they like it or not, that's just the way it is. If you're not there, if our voice is not represented at that table where decisions are being made, our interests aren't going to be there either.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we're coming to an end.
Sure. We could talk for hours.
Time goes fast.
Yeah.
All right, so typically at this time, I'd like for you to leave me a message that can be good for the community, to inspire those kids getting out of college, planning on going to college, but they don't know what to go to college for,
Sure.
or a parent that is lost or want to be part of the community.
Sure. What I would say is follow your passions. Don't chase the dollars. Do what makes you happy and invest everything in it. Whether it's you enjoy opening an art gallery, whether it's you want to go back to school, all of those things. Pour everything into it and give it your all, and I think you'll be finding very success in a very easy and very quick way.
And in 1 minute, what is your life like working next to Manny Cleveland?
I have an extreme opportunity to both read the history book that was and learn from the innovative leader that he is now, right? And so there are many times when I'll be driving around and I think I'm trying to pull something cool on him and say, hey, do you see this thing? This is new and interesting. He goes, oh yeah, we started that 15 years ago. And I think, oh yeah, I forgot. You were here, you were doing this. Yeah. And so it is such a pleasure to work with him.
Well, he has his own street now.
Yeah, he does. And that's the interesting thing, is that's how I connect to little kids, right? And bridge that gap to them as I say, I work for Emmanuel Cleaver, and they just give me a blank space, and I say, okay, well, you remember going to the Plaza Movie Theater and on the road, Cleaver Boulevard? Oh, yeah. That's the guy. That's the man behind the street.
Yeah. One more question. How can a community reach out to the office, and how can a community benefit best in how can they get the best out of the office?
Sure, and I'll just make this bigger because I think it's important. The community oftentimes come to me. I'm the neighborhood association president for one of the largest Latino neighborhoods in our city. And folks reach out. I've got a problem with my neighbor next door. Blah 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 blah. Okay, I can't afford to fix the paint. The city's on me. Blah 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 blah. There's city council. There's county legislators. There's county executives. There's members of Congress, members of the Senate. All of these people are there to support you in some way. And so if you find a problem that you think is important to you and impacts you in some way, reach out to us. We'll help guide you along the way to make sure you get there. Unfortunately, sometimes our culture tends to think government is a bad thing. In reality, in this country, we're here to help. And
and that is because we're conditioned that
of course, 100%.
In our countries, we run away.
Right.
Because
we don't corruption and all of the detrimental things.
Because every time we ask for help, they want money underneath.
Right.
And it's always that way. They're like, okay, give me some, I give you some.
Right.
And they only give you this much so you can give more.
Right. And that is not what this process is in our country. So reach out to me, reach out to others. There's amazing people like Ali Hernandez, who works for Mayor Quentin Lucas. All of us are here to help and support the community.
Fantastic. Manny, it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Excellent information. Great story about a little bit about your life, how your career has evolved, and how it's going.
Sure.
Any chances you're running for a bigger place in the Kansas City Metro?
We'll see.
Me too. Well, muchas gracias a todos ustedes por haber sintonizado y espero que este programa lo hayan entendido bien. Sus hijos y todas las personas que están al lado de ustedes han escuchado los mensajes que Manny Abarca 4 nos dejó. Es un muchacho que en verdad, si usted llega a conocer a Manny Abarca, se va a llenar de alegría, de sabiduría, porque él está lleno de muchas cosas, sabiduría, experiencia, y está en el mundo de la política, el servicio público, y en el medio ambiente. Hay muchas áreas donde ustedes pueden aprender de él. Ustedes jovencitos que están saliendo de la universidad o que van a ir a la universidad, pongan atención a estas cosas. A mí me encantaría ver más gente hispana metida en el proceso del servicio público, política y todo eso, porque eso es lo que hace la diferencia para nuestro futuro. El agarrar un trabajo es bueno, pero si tiene un trabajo, téngalo y después dedique 6, 8, 10 horas por mes en aprender cómo funciona el sistema público, cómo funciona el sistema político, para que hagamos la diferencia y nos convirtamos en la mayoría de poder. Eso les dejo esta semana de oficio para que lo investiguen. Ya saben, están aquí viendo a Carlos Vides, Mentes Innovadoras por Televida. ¡Feliz semana!